Hey everyone, this is Al McKay. Welcome to episode 31. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Alan McKay Podcast. Alan is an Emmy Award-winning visual effects artist and mentor to many leading industry experts. Listen in as Alan talks with other industry leaders in film, video games, and visual effects about their experience, lessons, and methodology. Alan will teach you pivotal advice to fast-track your career, better your skills, and reach your ultimate dream job. Check out the latest episodes on alanmckay.com.
Hey everyone, this is Al McKay and welcome to another episode. I am doing something a little bit different this week. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time and I hope it's something that will be pretty beneficial to you. And that is, I'm going to go through some of the common tools that I use day to day, which I pretty much rely on for everything that I do. Now, it's not everything, but I'm hoping some of this stuff are little tidbits of information that either you know about and haven't tried it out yet or blatantly haven't heard of before. So I go through a few really great techniques for capturing email addresses of other people. If you wanted to figure out like what someone's email address is at a studio that you want to apply at, or other ways of managing email and just other tools and tactics for being more productive, for being able to organize yourself more, just lots of cool stuff. So again, I'd love your feedback here as well as more insight into what are some of the tools that you use as well. So if you want, you can also get a video version of this, which is something I've never done before in regards to the podcast. Actually recorded the video session while I was doing the audio as well. So this was a chance for me to actually go through and visually show a lot of the stuff I'm doing. So I've tried to make this as easy to follow along as possible with audio, but if you want to check out the video version, what that will entail is it'll actually show a lot of the tools visually that as I go through them, how to use them, which I think is very useful, especially for the email stuff. So if you want to check that out, simply go to alanmckay.com/31download. Okay, so 31 download for the video session, and you can access the video there. And also for any show notes, you can just go to alanmckay.com/31. All right, and there'll be a link to the video there as well. Okay, so that is it for now. Let's get in there. I'll try and keep this as short as possible. But again, it's, like I said, a little bit different, but I'm hoping that this might be a great way for all of us to get a bit more insight into some of the really productive tools that we use for managing ourselves day to day and getting through a lot of what we do. So this is designed for artists, for designers, for anyone listening to this podcast, really. And also one last thing I just want to mention is if you want to check out the video, you can go to alanmckay.com/31download. So alanmckay.com/31download, all one word. And that will have the video showcasing everything I talked about. And if you want to check out the show notes, just go to alanmckay.com/31. All right, that's it, guys. Thank you again. I'd love to hear from you and also some of the tools that you use. So one of the first things I'm going to go through is my email. So again, this is my email. Don't dig too deep into it, but one of the first things I love is Email Game, which is an extension for Gmail, and it just adds a little button inside of Gmail here, and you just click it. It brings up a link, and it just goes to Email Game, one word, .baydin, so BAYDIN.com, and you go there. It's just a really nifty tool which plugs into your Gmail. So what it does is it brings up your email, and the whole point is you can set it to 25 emails, 50, 100. I set mine to 100, and what it'll do is it actually assigns a timer to your email. So when you open an email, it kind of figures out how long it should take to reply or to read an email. And then if you click reply, it assigns a certain amount of time to reply to the email. And it has a little timer ticking down, which just kind of makes you feel the pressure of like, okay, I got to reply. Otherwise, it goes in the negative and starts flashing. But up the top right, it actually has like a emoticon, and it's just like neutral when you first open it. But let's say I skip an email, it gets sad, and I skip through a few more, and it'll start crying because you haven't been replying to your email and being productive. So meanwhile, each email resets the timer, and it's dynamic in terms of it'll figure out how much time you should have to reply to an email. And you can pause it if you need to, but basically it's just a really cool way. And like above all that, it actually says like how many email conversations are waiting, so you can kind of see how many left you've got. So I've just skipped through 17, maybe, I'm not sure. But you can set how many emails you need to reply to win the game. For me, I set it to 100, and I usually play it about 3 times when I do it. So it sounds silly having like a email game, but what it is really is just forcing you to be really careful with your time, reply as quick as you can, and kind of motivating you to reply. Having that emoticon as well, and having just one email on your screen. I've actually read up a lot about email, and one of the big things that pushes people away is just the fact that you've got so many emails to go through. So the fact that it only has one email, when you reply, the next one pops up. That's all you can see on your screen. It kind of lets you single in and focus on what you're doing. On top of that, I usually get through about 300 email whenever I do it. So it works. And because it has that emoticon face, I don't know why, but I'm a total sucker for it. And like whenever it starts getting sad, I want to start replying more. I'm like, oh, I gotta reply. I gotta make it happy again. So I don't know, at least for me, it actually is very effective. But it has Boomerang, which is another cool feature. I use this outside of email game, but I'm going to go through what this is in a moment. But the fact that you can Boomerang in here means you can just kind of start to, I use it to basically thin my email out. I go through quickly, I go through 300 email, I might designate days through Boomerang, so that way like any student work is a Thursday, any personal email about the podcast or other stuff, it might be a Friday. And then, basically I'll go through and thin everything out, so that way the only emails left are ones that are time sensitive that I need to get to. So email game is really, really effective. On top of that, there's Boomerang. So let me just click on a random email. I'm just trying to find something really quick that I can click on. Let me just go to my accountant. Okay, so all right, basically this here is Boomerang, and Boomerang is basically an extension for Gmail, just like email game. It just pops up with a button, and you can see it's Boomerang. And Boomerang is something I cannot do without, basically. And what it is you click this button, it brings down like a drop-down menu, and this drop-down menu has stuff like the whole premise of how it works is it will take your email and it will send it away, and it will come back at a set time. So if you just have like some email that you don't really care about right now, but you want to reply to later, you could just hit like random time, go away, and randomly it's going to come back in a few days. But more importantly, when I open an email, I could say, all right, I don't have time for this. And again, just thinning my email out. So I might say, remind me in 4 hours. And that's like, it'll have a menu of like a bunch of different times. So you just click whichever one you want. And so this is really cool because I could basically say, okay, in 4 hours time, I'm going to reply to all these emails because they're irrelevant. And otherwise I could say tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, or you can say in a few days, next week, 2 weeks, 1 month, whatever. So again, someone emails you, they're like, hey, really busy right now, but let's talk in a month. I can just click 1 month, and that email a month from now is going to pop back up to the top of my inbox. And that is so powerful, just because it means that I can, disregard an email, but it's actually going to remind me. And what's really cool is I can say, okay, send this email away for 2 weeks unless someone replies. So if someone replies, then don't worry about sending it back to me. Okay. And so again, it's just kind of like I'm setting reminders on very important emails to come back to myself. But the best thing of all, and this is what I use, is that it has like a calendar button down the bottom, and you can click that and choose like a day that you want. But whenever you click Boomerang, it actually already highlights, so it's already active down the bottom. You can type in a day or a date, and it'll come back at that time. So for me, typically when I'm working on email, and you can going to be clicking a lot through this, but I'm going to click Boomerang and then just type in like Tuesday 9 a.m. And what's going to happen is it automatically will schedule this email to come back to me Tuesday, April 14 at 9 a.m. So it's really cool because it just means that basically for me, like I get a lot of email and I might be able to say, all right, like I've got a little folder here, March, I've got 275 emails I still need to reply to. So there's going to be days that, I want to designate for certain things. So if I get a lot of personal email, like someone's like, hey, I really dig the podcast, but it's like a Monday at 3 p.m. and I'm really frantically busy, I don't want to send a reply and say, thanks, really busy, I'll reply later, cheers, goodbye. So I want to be able to find time to reply. But for me, what I'll do is in my calendar, I'll use Google Calendars extensively, and I'll talk about that later. But with Google Calendar, what I can do is I'll block out each morning certain things that I designate like an hour to. So Fridays might be a day for personal email. So Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., I reply to as much personal email as I can. So what happens then is it means that I could get an email from someone and I click Boomerang and I type in Friday 9 a.m. because that is a personal email. And what's going to happen is Friday, finally I can sit down and I can actually take the time to carefully reply to an email and say what I want to say and not be rushed and actually give a proper reply that I think that they deserve. And for me, that's really important. And the same thing like Tuesdays and Thursdays are for students. So if I get emails on a Monday afternoon, I'm going to say, okay, Tuesday 9 a.m. or Thursday 9 a.m. And that way, Tuesday comes around, I open my inbox, and all the email that I've gotten throughout the week that was related to like students, let's say, that all starts flooding into my inbox at 9 a.m. And I sometimes do that where I need to catch up on email. I might have 9 a.m., 11 a.m., 1 p.m. And what happens is 9 a.m. might be all my student stuff. 11 a.m. might be some stuff that I just need to reply to and haven't. 1 p.m. might be some work-related bids that I need to put in or whatever else. And it's just a chance to kind of delegate or segregate my email into certain times. So that way you kind of get in the zone, you get into that flow, you kind of batch your email. So kind of like pottery theory, you get really quick at doing something because you're doing it repetitively. So I kind of find like categorizing my email can be really, really powerful. The other cool thing about Boomerang is if I hit reply on an email, I can send a reply, but what I could do instead is I could write someone an email saying like, hey, we really need this, it's really important, hit send, and then write another email saying, hey, it's been 2 days, just checking in, how's it all going, ? But then I could say schedule this for 2 days or for whatever time, 11:59 on Monday night. And what's going to happen is that email won't get sent until that time. But I could then say, if no reply, send it. So in other words, if they email me back, then don't worry about sending the email. But if I don't hear from this person, then it's going to send that email to them following up. So that can be, again, really powerful just to kind of not have to stress about like, oh, I've got to follow up with that person. I can actually schedule a few emails to get sent to them if they never reply to me. So you can kind of like schedule your harassing emails to prod staff member or whatever. Where's that shot? And the other cool thing is you've got send later, and it's another thing. So this sounds like, if you're just listening to the podcast, this is an episode I'm doing for the podcast. So like if this sounds really complex, it's not. Basically, you just have a Boomerang menu with a time to make the email disappear, and it'll come back. I can do it for 1 minute, and this email would actually come back in 1 minute. Hit confirm, and the email disappears. And really, really neat. On top of that, so let's just go to something else. Just looking for like a random email to click on. So on top of that, basically I could reply to an email, and what I could do is, and I use this a lot, is send later. And what send later does is I could actually type in a time to send the email. So I did this a lot on Metallica, where I would batch like a lot of renders, and when the renders are done, it would automatically go into Nuke. Nuke would build a QuickTime. That QuickTime would go into Dropbox. It would upload to the cloud. That would generate automatically links to the Dropbox stuff, and that would I would have all that stuff hours ahead of time. So the way that whole process worked for me was that I could write an email to my clients like 4 or 5 hours before the files were actually there and say, here's all the files, here's the links, let me know if you have any feedback. And basically what would happen is Dropbox might say, okay, this is going to take about 3 hours to upload, and so roughly it'll be done by 9 p.m. So I would schedule like 10 p.m. to send my email, or Monday 10 p.m., whatever I wanted. And then what would happen is that email would actually get sent at 10 p.m. So in other words, at 10 p.m. they open their inbox, this email pops up and it says, here's all the links. And again, this is, if you want to be a bit more sneaky, you could, and I have done this from time to time, where I might do an all-nighter and try and get as far ahead on a project as I can. So I try and get like all my shots done for the week. And then comes Tuesday, I might write 3 emails. First one's like, here's shot 1 to 5. Then I click send. The next one I write, here's shots 5 to 8, but I schedule it for later that day. And then I say, finally, here's shots 9 to 11, and I send that the next morning. And so suddenly I've got these emails that are going to start trickling into their inbox with additional like links to shots and everything. So that way they can be like, okay, awesome. And that can be kind of useful if you just don't want to give everyone everything at once. You just want to trickle it in. So I find that just being able to batch or schedule sending emails can actually be really, really useful at times. So Boomerang to me is just one of the most useful things I've ever used. And if I go back to my inbox, that I sent a Boomerang email, which basically it comes back 1 minute. I set it for 1 minute, so basically it just pops back in my inbox a minute later. So it disappears, and then at a designated time it comes back. So that to me is just like one of the most coolest tools ever. And I'm going through a lot of email stuff, but another cool thing, I've got my accountant here, so up on my screen, but I've got a tool called Rapportive. So that's Rapportive, I think. So Rapportive is basically what it does is it creates like a sidebar, like a right sidebar on your Gmail. And whenever I'm emailing someone or someone emails me, so I click a link, I can email from someone, it actually brings up all the information it can find on that person, which is really, really cool. So for instance, I just brought up like my accountant, and what actually happens is on the right panel, it pops up his name, his email address. It mentions that he's in New York City. He's co-founder of one company, and he's another one here. We are connected on LinkedIn. Comes up with his Twitter info, and it also brings up all the people that we know on LinkedIn. So this is really cool because when I first get an email from someone, I can actually see who are our mutual connections. On top of that, it'll bring up his profile, other stuff like links to his Google Plus. I can actually see other emails that we've corresponded on. So suddenly I have this like battle station dashboard of information about anyone I'm talking to. So I get an email from any person, I can literally just click it, and it's going to bring up all the information about that person that I have, which can be so damn useful. And I'm just trying to see if I can find something from somebody I know. Anyway, so point being, it's really, really useful just to be able to find info about those people. So yeah, really awesome. And the cool thing is that not only can I click on someone's name and it brings up all their info, however, that is so freaking cool because it means that I can easily connect with them on LinkedIn just by clicking a button. But on top of that, if I'm talking to a customer or someone contacts me, I could see what city and country they're from. And, it might say from Boston. I could say, oh, cool. You're from Boston. I was in Boston last year, we're doing a movie. Hope it's not too cold over there. So just it's kind of just cool to have all that info. Now the really sneaky thing is that you can actually compose an email, and this is something that's really powerful about Reportive. I could actually type in someone's name, and if I get it right, it'll actually bring up the information about them. So I'm just thinking of somebody. I'm going to do, Alex will kill me, but okay, Alex Alvarez, president of No One. So I've actually got him in my inbox here, but if I type in, if I just want to try an email and I don't know what it is, I could say alex@nomon.com, and let's see if anything pops up. Okay, nothing pops up. But I know there's like a nomonschool.com. So I type in nomonschool.com, and if that email address works, then it actually will pop up with all of his info. So alex@nomonschool.com, Greater LA area, founder, president of Nomon, founder of Sketch Theater, owner of CG Channel, founder, president of Nomon Workshop, founder, president of Nomon School VFX. We are connected on LinkedIn. Here's his Twitter. Here's all our mutual friends. He doesn't use Google+. So if you're wanting to apply for a job and you don't know their email address and you want to guess what their email is, like alan@alanmckay.com. You're going to try that. Okay, doesn't exist. amckay@alanmckay.com. Oh, look at that. It exists. So if you want, and this is kind of being cheeky, but I'm just trying to think of a good example to use here. I mean, an obvious one would be, this isn't too hard at all, but Tim Miller at Blur. So Blur Studio email address. Probably not the best example, but if I was to do this, obviously there's no email address, but you could say Blur. You could look for email blur.com. I don't know why I'm always referring to Blur. But anyway, so you look here, it's like jobs at Blur, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the company's going to be, you could try and figure out the structure of I could look for email addresses or whatever. Thing is, I might say tmiller@blur.com and it's going to come up wrong. Okay. But then I might try tim@blur.com. Just try that and oh, look there. It's, the email address exists. I'm trying to think of other people. I mean, obviously G. Lucas at Lucasfilm. What you can do is start to mimic the email addresses. So one final example is, again, being sneaky, but let's just say that I want to look up some movie credits. And I'm just going to go, I'm jumping ahead here. I didn't plan to do this, but let's just say I jump into a movie and I want to pull up let's say I pull up someone's name, which is Chris Harvey, a good buddy of mine. You basically, let's say it was under Image Engine. I know he's at ILM now, but if Chris Harvey Image Engine, for instance, and we looked up Image Engine is image-engine.com. So just to try this out, image-engine.com, and I could say see Harvey at, and see if that email address works. Doesn't work, so you could try a few different structures. So Chris Harvey or Chris-Harvey, Chris H, and you can start to kind of guess what the emails are. And typically, as long as they have some kind of online presence, you're going to get something pop up. Okay, so there's different things you can do. Again, I'm just trying to think of people off the top of my head, but ultimately, it's just a cool way to be able to kind of figure out what email addresses actually exist by using this tool, Reportive. Because if it actually exists and they have any online presence, it's actually going to scan and bring up all the info about that person. So it can be very, very powerful to figure out someone's email. And like I said, all you really need to do is try and figure out the structure of an email. So digital domain, for instance, you might find just Google around and try and find somebody's email address, anything at all. And from there you can kind of guess okay, especially the bigger the company, typically they're going to structure it first letter, first name, then last name at dd or d2.com or whatever it's going to be. And by doing that, you can kind of guesstimate or guess what their email is going to be. So Reportive can be really cool to kind of track down someone's email address. So you can fire out an email and, ask for a job or harass them or talk about how you want to hire them for a project or whatever it's going to be. It can be really, really powerful. So Reportive, just in general, just having info, just when you open an email, having all their info pop up on the right side. Again, it's just something that's so freaking powerful, and I use it a lot. Finally, I won't go into filters too much, but like I've for the last 2 years, I've spent extensive amount of time trying to like figure out the ultimate solution for getting to inbox zero. And for me, I'm actually going to write like a more extensive article, a very in-depth article about this, but there's a lot of tools that you can use. Maelstrom is a great one. There used to be Swizzle, but it got acquired by Maelstrom. But this can be really cool because I can actually sort my email. It's just Maelstrom, like mailstrom.co. So Maelstrom, but actually like email. And I'm just looking at the only email that popped up in my shopping, because typically it would be like guilt.com and everything else. But the only thing that's popped up is an email from Steam about Goat Simulator, which I don't even know what that is. But so basically it allows me to sort my social feeds. So I could choose like LinkedIn emails, Twitter, Spotify, Yelp, YouTube, or I could choose time. So I could find that there used to be an email from 1964. I don't know how that happened, but basically I could choose like emails from a year ago, and I could say, okay, well, clearly I'm not going to reply to these, so archive them. Or I can choose like pretty popular subjects. So right now, tax is a big one, or just stuff people email me. So I can kind of archive emails based on threads or people who email me. It can be really useful just to kind of collect a lot of email, like to go through it very easily and sort it based on all these different but pretty powerful subject categories. So Maelstrom is another one that's really useful. I ended up like looking up all these tools and email game, all this stuff. In the end, what I ended up doing was using filters, which I'd always used for email, but I went to town. I basically spent a week going through my email. I think it was a week. Yeah, it actually was. It was like 4 or 5 dedicated days. I went through all my email. And what I would do is I would apply filters to every single thing. So I started training my email, not like, okay, any emails from like this mailing list to go to this folder, but actually like creating massive folders to do with everything that I don't think is going to be time sensitive. So stuff that I want and I want to read, but it needs to be, I want to be able to read it later on. It doesn't need to be right now. And so what ends up happening is it's basically stuff that I don't anticipate that's going to land in my inbox, which is typically personal email. But I created easily over 100, 150 filters, additional filters to what I already had, if not more, going through every single email address. Like if I got something from Vodafone or whatever, Verizon, whoever it is, like a gas bill, phone bill, whatever, these would be things that would go into bills. Then I would get stuff from another. And essentially I started to train my filters to be able to literally just construct all these folders based on themes. So if it's stuff that I really, want to read, if it's business related, if it's, stuff I want to learn from, notifications about PayPal, bills, CG Society, whatever it would be. And that way it would collect it all and it would categorize it all. And one thing I liked, there was a program or a tool out there called Swizzle, which was acquired by Maelstrom. And Swizzle allowed you to build a digest. So in other words, you could get all your email, but it would essentially come in one email which would have thumbnail images of every single email. So you could kind of click through them all, and any ones that are relevant, you still got access to them if you wanted to. But by doing the filtering, basically creating like really advanced filters, it was extremely powerful to filter everything I needed in a pretty intelligent and powerful way. So I really recommend kind of getting heavy into filters. I'm going to write about that later, but I want to throw that in just because it's so useful and so powerful. So that's the main thing I want to mention just about like tools, because I really think that Reportive alone, you'll be able to jump on people's LinkedIn, you'll be able to find info, you'll be able to track down email addresses. Boomerang, you're able to sort out like replying to people and be able to automate a lot of your email game allows you to stay on top of your email a lot more and be really productive. And it kind of gets fun in a way too, because you want to keep that face happy. In addition to that, Maelstrom, just for organizing all your email, it's pretty powerful. One tool I use extensively is Evernote. And Evernote for me, it's essentially the base of it is essentially a tool, which is a note-taking tool, but it will synchronize with every one of your devices that you have Evernote set up on. Now, if you have a Mac, the notepad on your iPhone, all that stuff like syncs around, at least on your iPad, iPhone, and iTunes. So that sort of thing is kind of cool, but it's still pretty light. Whereas Evernote, hopefully I don't have any crazy notes up on my screen, but Evernote can be really kind of useful just for being able to organize all my notes into one place. And so I don't know why I'm sharing a folder with a colleague and it's about recipes, but basically I can have like a lot of different stuff that I can sort through. I can, for instance, like I can put in images, I can put in video, I can put in audio as well. So I've actually just got my notes of what I wanted to talk about up on my screen, but basically I can set reminders, I can do a lot of different stuff. It's really light, unlike Microsoft Word or anything like that. I can tag everything, which is essentially the main part of it, is the fact that you can tag or put into notebooks and kind of really organize your stuff. I know so many people who are way more successful than I could ever imagine or ever could be, that all use this as like the backbone of how they work. And it's extremely effective for keeping organized, sharing notes. In fact, like there's a lot of collaborative projects I'm working on right now with a few different artists, and I'm able to have folders where anything that we find like relevant we can throw in there. And there's cool things like I can hit Windows print screen and I can draw a capture of my screen, and that will actually come up on my screen here. I could then pixelate like the logo and basically just drag a marquee over the image I just captured just by drawing my capture window. I can annotate it, I can point arrows, I can type stuff like whatever I want on there. So again, like I might look at a video someone sends me, quickly give them feedback on their work and say, okay, this is kind of bad, fix this. I can mark or circle different areas. There's so much stuff I can do, and it's just really effective just for being able to annotate stuff very quickly. And that archives that I can choose like tags, I can send it back to someone, I can share it in a folder that they can see. So it's really cool. But then on top of that, there's, let's say, there's the iPhone apps. Like the apps are actually extremely powerful. There's stuff for food blogging and all that stuff. But then there's, you would take a picture with your iPhone of text and will annotate it. Not annotate, sorry, transcribe it. And what that will do is actually will turn it into text. So you could actually then search for it in your notes. And that can be extremely powerful. So what ends up happening is you can look through your notes and be able to find stuff that you took a picture of with your iPhone. Finally, in addition to that, you could also scan someone's business card, just take a picture, and it will process all the info and store it in your Gmail. There's a lot of additional plugins you can get as well. It just goes on and on and on. In addition to that, in your web browsers, I could go to a page that I really like, and I can click up the top of my Google Chrome, and I could say, basically to take a screen capture. So I click it, I could save the entire page, and I could tag it with podcast, and hit save, and it's going to archive the entire page is saved. I can click it now, and it'll actually bring up the entire page saved. So really cool just to be able to, where are we? Just trying to, actually I've got to sync it for it to actually appear on my local screen. But this is just really useful way to be able to like capture an entire screen, like a web page that I liked, and it has like everything is captured. It also will show up related notes, anything that it finds that you've saved or worked on that's related to it, it can bring up next to it as well. So the screen capture stuff is really really cool. And you can either do that, or you could save as a PDF, bookmark it, you could simplify the article and actually will format it for you so it's really easy to read, or you can do a screen grab or whatever, And finally, there's like a Clearly plugin, which basically formats your stuff so it can be really easy to read. I like doing Night Owl, which just makes it different contrast. So Evernote, like there's plugins for it. It just goes on, and typically it's free. You can pay for it, and that allows you to share and use a lot of the advanced features. But I've found it just to be like the backbone of how I work, and so typically I'm not going to waste time saying, hey, check out this like note syncing app. But this is something that's far beyond that. You can do so much with it. So it's just evernote.com, evernote.com. And so yeah, it's free, but you can get more advanced versions. And I love it. I think it's just so powerful. Going beyond that, there is other cool stuff. You can get presentation mode. There's a few really cool things. Beyond that, there's a couple other things I'm just going to mention really quick. These are just more my own personal preference, but there's stuff like Awesome Note. I'm not really going to go into too much, but it's basically an iPhone note-taking app that I just found to be really useful, just to be able to categorize into like these little tabs a lot of stuff that I use a lot. The cool thing is it syncs with Evernote, so I can have I can put stuff in my Evernote folder that syncs then to this Awesome Note application. And I just found it to be kind of like a really neat and friendly way of like categorizing so much stuff. So again, if you just want to like have a look at it on your iPhone, that's one I found to be really cool. I actually will go through a couple of iPhone apps really quick that I just found to be, for me personally, really useful. There's a bunch of ones that are like, basically there's a few things like Wunderlist, any.do, and Clear iPhone app. Now, these are all pretty much the same, but they're essentially just like swipe kind of gesture-based apps that you can sync everywhere. And I like Clear just because it looks really neat, and it's really gesture-based. So you can quickly dump a lot of notes on your iPhone and swipe and move them around to categorize, and when they're done, you just swipe to say complete. So if you're building a to-do list for your day, you can set reminders, stuff like that, and this kind of stuff will pop up. You have your shopping list, and you swipe all the items off as you go, whatever you're doing. I find having something like that is kind of useful. Having more than one is not as very unproductive, but just having like AnyDo or Clear or Wunderlist are all just really useful. Wunderlist you can get that syncs with your PC, so I find it to be kind of cool just because I can have a list of stuff and a checkbox of like items that I need to do and assign them to people. There's a lot of different things you can do, and just by having some kind of task that you have like a to-do list that you can share with other people or manage all your stuff, it's just kind of good to have a productive checklist of your day that you can kind of manage. And the fact that on the iPhone they're kind of more gesture-based is kind of cool. One other thing I wanted to jump into is Trello, which Tobin Kirk and I believe talked about this on the podcast. So I was just setting this up earlier, but Trello is Trello, and what Trello does is it's basically just like a visual card system. And I know plenty of companies that use this for organizing stuff between teams, also for just organizing and building lists, like pin boards, whatever you want. I use it a lot where I'll set it up so I have like a unstarted, doing, done, and then omitted. And this essentially could be my to-do list for the day. And I might have stuff like do podcast, blow up a house, walk my dog, light house on fire, create additional debris, more tasks, whatever I put down. And I could say, okay, well, I'm currently doing the podcast. I've already blown up the house and walked the dog, and I'm not doing these other two things, so I omit them. And so I can drag these little cards back and forth between these statuses. So that's kind of like how I use it. But it means I can actually share that board with my producer, and my producer can say, what the hell is Alan or whoever else up to? And they could easily just look in the Trello folder, and they'll see in real time like what I'm currently working on. So it's just, depending on how you want to use it. Like I know people use it for marketing. I think I've actually got some stuff down here. So, I've got little things that people can write up a lot of cool information, organize it all, and share it with other people. And it's just really useful. And I know that like Tobin Kirk over at Blind, the exec producer there, he and his whole team use it quite extensively. So depending on how you want to use it, Trello can be just another way of working. In addition to that, one thing, and these are kind of more second nature things, but I figure I'll mention them anyway, but like a chat room, which would be the last thing you'd ever imagine would be useful, but I use HipChat when I'm with all my students, and it's more, I'll do like live webinar classes where everyone posts their work they're currently doing, and I'll review it like I would dailies. I'll go through everyone's work, and I'll unmute the microphone and we'll chat like over the microphone back and forth. But at the same time, I have a chat window, and I actually use HipChat for that. So it's just hipchat.com. The thing is, it's free, and you have designated chat rooms. So you could set up like multiple rooms that's specific to you. So you could have one for your buddies at work or whatever else. And all you do is you send an invite link and then click it and they're in. So it's really easy to share around. Now, the reason I mention this is because it's actually quite useful. Because if you're working in a team, like I've found a lot of times, like Pixamondo does it really well, and I use it a lot with my teams. We all use Skype, so we can set up like a group Skype chat. So that way you just have like a window open and everyone can like chat back and forth. And that can be really cool just because you can share information very easily. But not every studio enforces that. So like if you're at a studio and not everyone has Skype, it's a lot more painful to kind of organize that. But if you have HipChat or something, you can basically say, okay, everyone jump in this room. And if you have like everyone on your team, like we tried to do this at Blur on Halo, it didn't really work out too well, but using their software, but like Jabba. But if you were to use HipChat or whatever, you can basically have like everyone from your team or everyone in the company all in one chat room. And when you've got stuff done, and I found this to be so effective, when you got stuff done, you can post it in there and say, hey, these shots are done, ready for comp. Compositor sees it and says, okay, great, grabs the elements, throws them in. Of course, you still put them in a shotgun everywhere else, but having that real-time conversation, you might say like, who's working on this shot? Because I've got a question. Someone sees it, says, okay, yeah, I'm working on it. What's up? And you say, okay, well, how many frames is it? Oh, it's 62 frames. Okay, cool, awesome. Just having that real-time interaction is so beneficial to a team. And I remember Obama, when he had his second election, his entire team was on a real-time, I think it was like a BlackBerry chat, but basically they're in a live chat room, they're his entire team. So rather than doing like running around with a headset or trying to call each other all the time and coordinate that way, instead what happened is they would all interact in one giant chat room the whole entire time. And to me, that was kind of something that I'd always done, but then seeing like something as important as like the next re-election being done that way, it kind of says like, okay, this is a really efficient way to work. So just having your team in there and be able to, if you have a question, you can get answered very quickly, be able to interact with each other. It doesn't mean it's distracting. It's just a little window on the side that's just being fed information. So you can kind of take a look at stuff and basically be able to get feedback very quickly. My girlfriend's asking me if I want to get Starbucks, so I'll rush through this really quick. But so that's again just something I wanted to mention because I do urge you to try it out. It can be really, really useful. So moving along a little bit more, beyond HipChat, there's also GroupMe. That's for your iPhone and stuff as well. GroupMe is really cool. I only mention this because let's say you go into a conference. It's kind of cool if you organize like anyone that you may know to all be on this thing. So that way you can send a message to the room and you all get texts or a pop-up on your iPhone. Basically just, so that way you can coordinate really well. So I use that a lot when you have like a big conference or a big event that you're all going to. So that way you can all say, hey, we're all going to this bar, and everyone will get that message all at once. So it's not necessarily a productivity tip, but it's more a great way to kind of coordinate large groups of people. So in fact, I'm doing industry drinks pretty soon. That actually might be a really great thing to coordinate with. So anyway, just a couple of things like that. It can be very useful. One other thing I wanted to mention is OneNote. And OneNote is from Microsoft. I'm actually just going to Google it. MS OneNote. Okay, so OneNote is from Microsoft, and it's kind of meant to be similar to Evernote. It's meant to, essentially meant to be the Evernote killer or the biggest competition. I think everyone else uses OneNote differently to how I use it, but basically for me, when I was working Call of Duty with Activision, that's how they use OneNote to coordinate a lot of their tracking of data and everything else. I'm just trying to see if I can find a good screenshot of it rather than bring up my OneNote. But basically, it's kind of cool because you could have like all your notebooks on the left, and you click them, and it'll bring up like all the notes related to that. I just found it to be something that I would use extensively to for any information that I'm constantly updating, such as podcast. Projects I'm doing. I want to like store all of my information, kind of like an intranet, but an easy to modify for myself place. So I had it all in one spot, and it's online in the cloud, so it's just kind of easy to modify. And yeah, so I just kind of found that to be extremely useful, just to be able to consolidate all this information and then segregate all this information to set places. So I use OneNote completely differently to how I use Evernote. But for me, I can say, okay, well, all of the ideas I have for this subject, I'm going to put into this section, and it just means I can go back anytime and add to it or modify, check it. And I just find it to be a bit more organized for how I think. So I really kind of dig how that works. So yeah, I just kind of figure it's one similar to that that's worth mentioning. A couple other things I'm just going to quickly mention is just Instapaper, stuff like that. Again, these aren't too related to anything, but Instapaper is just really cool. If you got articles that you like and you wanted to save them, you can basically click a button. Just trying to find mine, and what it'll do is it'll synchronize it all to one place. So then later on, I could it'll format it so it's really easy to read on a phone as well, and then I can just like read it later. And another one is called Read Me Later, I believe. Read this link later, and again, they're basically just ways to kind of consolidate a lot of information. I use Flipboard, which is just an iPhone app, but every day I kind of read up on news and articles I like, things that I dig, because it'll customize all the information specific to what I'm interested in. So it's kind of cool because I can just click stuff if I don't have time to read it. I can say Instapaper, and later on I'm on a flight, I can have all the articles I didn't have time to read. I can kind of go through in one place. It's kind of like a bookmark, but actually snapshots and formats your articles. So I kind of figure I'll mention that stuff in there. One other thing I wanted to kind of get into really quick is Vimeo, and it kind of sounds nuts, but like Vimeo is a given. It's like saying YouTube, but I use Dropbox extensively, and I'm just going to say Dropbox is amazing. And working remotely, I can synchronize a lot of stuff very effectively, and I built a lot of tools around Dropbox to sync stuff. But the fact is, I like how Vimeo has a lot of really powerful stuff. So I'm just trying to think of what to bring up really quick. Basically, Vimeo has a lot of cool things. One of them is the fact that you can upload from Dropbox. So it actually has a folder as well you can set up, which it automatically will upload from. So what I do is whenever I'm doing any training, I might have like 10 hours of video that I want to render from Premiere. And what I do is I make it save all out to this folder in Dropbox. And what happens then is as soon as it finishes rendering, Dropbox starts uploading it. And then when it finishes uploading, Vimeo will then start converting it and publishing it in Vimeo. Okay, so this can be a really powerful system where I never have to go, okay, upload and wait a long time. All my stuff automatically uploads, and then from there, I just need to bring it over. But if I put in that folder, it automatically does bring it over. So I figure it's well worth mentioning that, just because it's such a cool feature, and I think it's kind of overlooked. So I want to kind of mention a couple of things. Another thing I'm just going to bring up while we're on the subject of Dropbox is it's got Video Vimeo School. And whether you're a pro or starting out, I don't care. It has a lot of really cool information. If you just want to check like, okay, well, how do I shoot an HDRI? Or what are the settings for doing DSLR? What about, software, sound? Like what's some tricks to remove noise, whatever. I haven't extensively gone through it, but like it is really on the point stuff that is applicable to software, to video, to gear, everything else. Really useful. So again, if you're not aware of it, like don't just think, oh, video service, they must have some like crappy learning videos on there. They're actually really good. Another one I want to mention about Vimeo, and I don't want this to sound snobby, but like I have TVs in most of my rooms in my apartment, and typically I use like a PlayStation as a media center. It's a good $300 solution. Get to watch movies, Netflix, everything on it. Recently I've been looking around a lot, and I got an Apple TV for 2 of my screens just because there was a feature that I really liked, and that is because it is AirPlay. So AirPlay is really great because I might be watching a TED Talk, or I might watch an online course, whatever I want to do, and on my iPhone I literally can just flick it onto the TV that I'm watching or that's in the room. And let's say I go upstairs to a different TV, I can flick it to that TV instead. And this is really, really awesome. It's exactly what I want. So that way I might have a video that, like a TED Talk, let's say, that I'm watching, and I can, something that typically is more you watch out of a browser, and there isn't like an easy way to watch it on like your PlayStation or anything. You could easily just flick it from your phone to whatever TV you're looking at and stream music or whatever else you want. I found that to be really cool. And on top of that, Vimeo is available for Apple TV as well. So if you're watching video tutorials, even this, you could watch it on your TV through Apple TV. So I think that's kind of cool because you might be in bed and trying to get up in the morning, put on a video and start at least listening and learn some stuff. I find this is good because I don't have too much time, and being able to find like places where I have a bit of spare time, I can kind of designate some time to watching stuff and whatever else. So there's just a few things like that. Also, Vimeo Organizer, if you're not aware of it, it's just like a kind of bird's eye view of all your videos. So you can kind of go through. You can also sort them by most plays, for instance, or least plays. And I think that's kind of cool if you're trying to do videos and find out if they're trending or not, just because you can see which one's the most popular out of all the ones you're doing. Finally, there's stuff about like publishing. I was trying to look around for a second, but you can look at all your settings for publishing videos, stuff like that. What I kind of like is that Vimeo has a lot of apps. So you can actually connect Facebook, Google+, LinkedIn, Tumblr, Twitter, everything to Vimeo. And let's say you make a cool effects video or something that you want to show off. Like, rather than then have to personally, upload it everywhere, you put it on Vimeo, it automatically will post into your feed on all these different things. Even Zerply, which I interviewed James Bennett a while back about. Now that's just really cool because it means that instantly you gain that exposure, and that's what you want, is to get visibility for whenever you post something. So I think that's just, again, just kind of useful to have. You can put in as much stuff as you want in there. So Vimeo sounds like a no-brainer, but I want to just throw that out there just because it actually has a lot of features which allow me to get a lot more done. So I kind of find it to be really useful. One other thing I want to mention is focus at will. So just those 3 words is one word, focus at will, and so AT. And what this is essentially a kind of, how would I describe it? Basically, it generates music, and you can kind of choose between different musics, but it's built around productivity. It's just going to be looping music. So you could choose like ambient. It's got settings in here like classical, focus, up-tempo, alpha chill, acoustic, cinematic, ambient, water, pianos, ADHD, which is just, I don't even know what the hell to call that. It's just insane. And then like labs, which could be, it's kind of interesting because you'd have ones like cafe focus and cafe creative, which is, it kind of imitates just there's a repetitive ambient noise in a room. So if you're at a cafe, you'd hear all this background noise of people talking, stuff like that. And the whole idea is, and it actually works really well, is that you can choose your energy level where it's low, medium, or high, and it will dynamically adapt the ambient looping music to that. And I thought it was a kind of really dumb gimmick, but I ended up buying it. I think it's like $30 for the year, and I now use it all the time. And it's built for productivity, and they test it extensively. They beta test with all their users, and it allows you to it'll actually track your productivity, and that way you can kind of find out what you best respond to keep focused. And it actually does work very well in terms of like, I'll put it on when I'm doing a lot of creative writing, and hours can go by instead of me kind of like, losing focus and wanting to get up and move around. it actually kind of helps me get focused. And so it's just like a simple tool, but it can be really useful to get like focus sessions in that you want to get a lot done. So this is actually something that I use quite a lot. Another one I'm just going to get onto really quick is Mindmeister. And Mindmeister, it's I think $5 a year. But what you'll do is it allows you to build mind maps. Okay, so mind maps are a way to kind of figure out information you want to do, or kind of block together ideas that you want to have, organize stuff that you're doing. I think this is really, really cool, just because, like, for me, I'm just looking through this stuff really quick. I got a lot of old mind maps. I don't use it as much now, but like for me, it basically meant that like I've got a mind map up on my screen right now, which was actually when I wrote the overtime versus productivity article. I actually fleshed out this massive mind map of all the points I wanted to make, and this to me kind of helped me organize all the information that I had that I'd written down on paper into a structured way to structure my article. And so this was really useful for me to kind of build my article and figure it all out. And so this is like one way to work, is to use mind maps to kind of visually be able to structure everything that you're doing. On top of that, like I structure sometimes my shots. I've got up on my screen now. I just saw it here. This is a shot from Transformers 3, and it was breaking down the elements I wanted to do. But then there's like public maps that people share as well, and they're really awesome because there's everything from people kind of deconstructing a book that they've read, or technology, whatever it's going to be. There's really, really great amounts of like public information being shared that anyone can kind of find pretty useful. So I'm just trying to think of something that might be useful to pull up. So but the cool thing too is you could use these for presentations that you can put in media. So yeah, you can pretty much do anything. So I find these can be really great for me to kind of just deconstruct a lot of information that I need, and kind of for me to kind of see the altitude, see like how it all fits together. So mind mapping is just a really cool way to kind of block out ideas. There's another one called Xmind, which is a commercial one. I forget how much it costs, but it's just a way to be able to, again, like structure everything you do, save it as a PDF, whatever you want. So Mindmeister, I think it's $5. You can try it out for free for 30 days. I found that to be just really, really neat to try out. Another one I want to get into is trying to think of the WhyStamp is what it's called. So WhyStamp is basically like I forget, it's like $15 or $20, but it gives you a intelligent kind of email signature. And basically, I'm just trying to see if I can find some examples, but WhyStamp is just a simple tool that plugs into your Gmail. And what's so cool about it is that it actually gives you like a really attractive customized signature that's like really easy to put together. And what you get is something just that works. It's not ugly, and it's kind of cool for anyone who looks at your stuff. So it just kind of presents you really well, and it's easy to construct. So I'm just trying to find like a good image, because mine is kind of a mixture of both. I have a pretty robust email signature, because for me, I find email to be a chance to kind of have some free ad space, in terms of like if I email someone that I don't know and I want to quickly say, I want to have a bit of authority. I want to be able to say, okay, I work here, here's my title, here's some other stuff. It's just a good chance to kind of encapsulate a lot of information about you in a small place. And so my email is a bit of HTML code, because I still want to keep like on my screen, like the top half of it, I have like the WhyStamp information. And the cool thing is you can put in all your social media links, and you can add in as many as you want. And it has like hundreds of different ones you can have, plus like me on Facebook, or add some HTML, or lots of different stuff for like, you could actually post dynamic Facebook status or your Twitter feed. Your last three things are random quote, promotions you're running, badges. You can post like Instagram stuff, like whatever you want. So you can really customize this stuff. But the whole point is it gives you a really nice and attractive email signature that's all easy to read and find out like information about you. I also think that like rather than making people look for you and Google you, especially if maybe you don't want to be Googled, I don't know what that would be, but maybe you have some stuff on there you don't want people to see. Well, again, the more stuff you have in front of you, like in your email signature, the less likely they're going to look around. If you have your real Twitter, LinkedIn, all that stuff, then, they click on all that, opens up, you're kind of driving them to the information you want them to see. So my email signature is kind of ugly because I haven't had a chance to really flesh it out, but I switched over to WhyStamp. I like it because it also gives me a profile picture. So again, I think it's really useful to have a picture of you. People can relate to you then if they see, who you are, what your face is. That's why I like Rapportive, because I can actually see who they are. I can see a headshot of them and all this other information. It kind of gives you a better idea like who that person is. And I use the example of my girlfriend because when I helped her write a resume, she has stuff like tattoo artist, and like her portfolio will be like skulls and all this crazy stuff. Then she'll have vehicle, designing like vehicle art, stuff like that, and video game stuff, paintings, sexy girls she paints, like all this crazy diverse stuff. Now, if I were to read her resume, I would instantly think probably someone a little bit different to what I expect, especially, when she's actually like a 26, 27-year-old gorgeous girl and just not what you would actually picture to associate with that stuff. So again, it's kind of like recalibrating their expectation of you. Like if you have a nice, friendly, professional photo that goes with your LinkedIn, everything else, it just does wonders. I think it just makes you feel a bit more approachable. So WhyStamp, again, like you can set up different signatures. You can set up multiple, do whatever you want with it. I think it's really, really cool. For me, like I still have my ugly old signature underneath because I wanted to put like a link to podcast, some of the places I speak at, other information, my real IMDb website. So that's stuff I need to kind of go and fit into my WhyStamp stuff. But so right now it's kind of like HTML code over the top of my WhyStamp. But basically you can like really customize this whole signature, and it didn't cost much. It was like $15 or whatever. Maybe because if you go to appsumo.com, sorry, I'm drawing a blank for a second. I actually got on here for a special, and I'm not sure if it's still available, but if you go to appsumo, one word, .com, you should be able to go down. There should be something about signatures in there somewhere if the deal's still available, and that way you get a deal from it. So I'll try and leave a link to that in the notes. I'm pretty sure I'm going to forget. But again, I think having a good email signature is very important. So that's the kind of stuff I just want to mention, again, related more to your career. Okay, so a couple of last things. It's kind of not exactly what I wanted to go through, but ticktick.com is just another a very simple checklist. You can quickly just click stuff and it will go to completed. So it's just kind of useful for organizing stuff. And finally, a couple other apps I want to mention is like Rescue Timer and Time Doctor. So let's see if I can bring this up. All right, so Time Doctor is something that allows me to kind of log all my time very easily. I can log I can just basically click a task or type a task in, and when I click it, it becomes active, and I can say I'm taking a break. It automatically detects if I'm away from my desk for 3 minutes. It'll pop up saying, you want a break, and then it will switch off the timer. So it's a really great way to log your time. I'm doing a lot of stuff right now, and I'm actually trying to track everything I do just so I can look back and say, okay, this took 3 days, this took a week, this is a lot more than I expected. Really cool. Rescue Time is another really great one because you can actually block yourself from viewing certain things, or you can track all the websites you're visiting. It can be really useful for basically just kind of like keeping track of everything that you're doing, all the programs you use, everything, and just kind of forcing yourself to be a lot more productive. But you can kind of say, I'm going in the dark. I'm going dark and just kind of focusing for a while, and you can actually have it block like websites or other things that you might list as being distracting. And so that way it'll actually tell you, like I spent 60 minutes in Photoshop today, 30 minutes Evernote, whatever. And you can start to look at like where you're designated or splitting up your day. And I find this to be really good just to kind of see where my time goes, which is why I'm using Time Doctor as well. And they're kind of different tools, but both are, both have free versions and commercial versions, so you can try it out. But I just find it's kind of like tracking your sleep. I just want to start seeing like, okay, you know what? Like I spend this much time in Shotgun, like logging my shots. This is so stupid. I'd rather focus on creating shots all day long, whatever it's going to be. So you can start to see like how productive you are and like what are the times during the day that you're productive. You can really kind of break down everything you're doing to a science. So that is another one that's really cool. One other iPhone app, and this is, again, I apologize for this being so scattered, but there's an iPhone app called Quick Voice. And I use this a lot because it's just a quick app. I hit it, I can hit record, records what's going on. I can hit play it. It has a bunch of syncing options. I can actually apparently send an email, send it to myself, and it transcribes into email. I've never used that, but that would be really cool. But it's just a really cool quick voice app. But the cool thing is it actually has reminders, and it can sync with OneNote, Evernote, email, says a ringtone. I can open in whatever tool I want. I can configure it to use whatever I want. One thing I really like is I can use it with Dropbox. So I'm on Wi-Fi. I can record like an hour of content, conversation I have with someone that I want to like sit down and listen to at double speed on my headphones while I'm working, just to kind of recap what we discussed, dailies, whatever it's going to be. I can record it and then just hit Dropbox, and literally like 10 seconds or 5 seconds later, it's in my Dropbox folder on my PC. So I love that because it just makes it really easy just to kind of, like the AirPlay, just to kind of flick it to the device that I want. So again, I find voice recorder is what it's called, just to be a really simple but cool tool for what I'm doing. Just like there's another extension that I use in Google Chrome, which is called, if I right click and just click on speak it, it will speak the text.
I published a flag football ebook and sold it on Amazon.
So as you can hear, so what that does, I just can select some text, right click and say speak, and it'll actually start speaking that text to me. And I find that just to be really kind of useful. So that way, if there's an article, blog, something I want to check out, I can just click a button and it will start reading it out. And, it's not quite the same as, it's definitely not an audiobook or anything else, but it might be something that saves me having to sit down and read something. I can kind of multitask a bit more, get the gist of what that article is about. So I find it to be really cool. I dictate a lot, and that's why the quick voice is really cool, because if I want, I can quickly record stuff, sync it. I would love to be able to, I use my iPad, actually does a really good job of dictating me talking, and I can fill up pages doing like writing by talking to my iPad. I'd love if there was something for the PC. There's drag and dictate, stuff like that. Drag and dictate I find to be really heavy on memory, so I just haven't found to be the most effective tool. But I'd love to get other people's input if you know of a tool that does that sort of stuff really well. Beyond that, I'm just going to see what else I can talk about really quick. For me, there's another iPhone app I use, Headspace, which is a meditation app for people new to meditation. Now, most people are going to think meditation, really hokey, kind of out there stuff. For me, this is more about, I try like 10 minutes a day just to sit down and switch my brain off. And if I can get 10 minutes of that, awesome. It's very rare, but I find it to be really important to do. And so, Headspace is just like an app that's kind of built around kind of introducing you to that. So it's not meant to be some spiritual thing or associated with anything like that. It's basically just, I want to try and sit down and stop thinking for a little bit of time. Finally, a couple of other things I just want to mention. These are not productivity, but mint.com is a tool for managing your finances. So if you type in like Mint app or mint.com, you'll find it. And this is really cool because it basically will track everything you put in. You cannot like withdraw or send money or anything. It literally is just showing you your finances, but it can tell, you can set up budgets, and it will intelligently tell you like, hey, you're over your restaurant budget for the week. It can send you alerts to your phone about any, transactions being made on your account, anything. I actually did my taxes for the most part this year this way. Obviously I have my receipts for everything, but like, it just meant that I could categorize everything I'm doing, and just kind of gave me a better idea of like, where my money's going, everything else. So for me, it's just kind of cool being able to check all of my bank accounts in one spot and be able to see like, okay, how much cash do I have? Did that, did rent get charged into my account or, taken out of my account? How much money is being spent on certain things? And you can train it over time. So if it has withdrawals that it doesn't know what they are, you can tell it what it is, and then it knows for next time. And it can start to kind of organize all your finances, as well as like, bills you have coming up if you've got a mortgage or whatever else. So I mention this because it's probably one of the most beneficial tools out there. If you're not using it, you should be using it. Beyond that, one other thing, a website I wanted to mention is gift.com, gyft.com. Now, I started experimenting with this recently because I find it, there's a thing called reciprocity, which is a very powerful psychological trigger when it comes to giving people stuff. And you don't do it to get something back, but I find just giving people little items, it's such a small, innocent thing to do, and it can really go a long way. Finding a website like this where it's easy to give people stuff, I do this a lot, and it's just, if there's people who have been helping me out throughout the year and they've just been really great, and I just want to say thank you without going overboard. Just simple stuff like going and buying a gift card and saying like, here's a Best Buy card, or here's an iTunes card, or here's an Amazon card, Starbucks, whatever. There's a couple of like people around Christmas time. I just want to say like, hey, thanks for all your help this year. It was really great. I just wanted to say thank you. Here's a $10 Starbucks card. And it's such a small thing, but it can be really powerful. And I mention this because I think it's a good weapon to have just when you're perhaps talking to someone about a job or something, and you just want to say like not a job, but like you chatting to clients or whatever else and want to send them something nice, because you never know when that little thing you did will make them think like, wow, that person is such a cool person, like I'd love to work with them or whatever. And I think it's just like a really neat thing to do, and it doesn't cost much money to buy something like for $5 for someone. So I started doing that a lot, just kind of getting people gifts just to say thanks. So I think that's just something really cool that I really, really dig. Now, beyond that, I'm going to probably leave it there. I'm going to try and fit in one or two more things, but this is, like I said, been a bit of a free-for-all episode, and I just want to kind of fire out a lot of different stuff, and it's mainly talk about like the email stuff especially, but just little things that I've found to be kind of really useful for what I do day to day. And obviously, Google Calendar is one big thing, and I'm going to be talking about this later, but I think the best approach to managing your day, your month, your weeks, whatever it's going to be, is going to be, if it's not in your calendar, it isn't real. And that is that you should start to like really flesh out your days, putting everything you need into your actual calendar. And what it does is it means that you're committed to it. It's going to set up reminders. You can actually share this stuff with other people, making you accountable for it. So that way they're going to get information, they're going to be able to say like, hey, are we still in for this thing, or what are we doing? But more importantly, you start to get a visual idea of like how much time is going to a certain task, which I think is very important. So for me, being able to say, okay, well, I'm going to work on the launch of my mentorship program. It comes out in 2 weeks. I'm going to do that for 4 hours today. I'm going to record some lessons for 4 hours today. I'm going to work on the podcast for 8 hours today. And I'm also going to cook dinner, and I'm going to do these other things. That sounds great on paper. But if I were to then block that into my calendar, it would become really obvious really quick that I cannot do all those things. And that sounds silly. It sounds like a given thing, but it's so easy to overcomplicate your day. And I think, just by visually being able to assign time to a task, it is really effective, because you got to start thinking about, okay, well, how long is this task going to take? And when you start to see it visually in time, you start to say, wow, like I can't get all this stuff done. Time to start actually thinking realistically about it. I'm going to do these two things. Tomorrow I'm going to do the next thing. And you don't start to overcomplicate and overload your day. And as soon as you do that, you're going to fail. And when you fail, it's going to really cripple you, because your motivation just drops. So I think using Google Calendar is probably the most powerful tool I can mention here, just because it means that you can really designate time. And see how I mentioned before about like I would go into my calendar and set like time to reply to email. And that's so that way when I do get emails that aren't business related, I don't think, crap, I don't have time right now. I actually make time for them. And that way I'm not stressed. I can say, you know what? Okay, I've got an hour. I've dedicated this. So I've got time to like give a proper reply and say thank you to all these people that I want to say thank you to. And I've got time for all these other things. So you're really freeing yourself up. I think that for me, the biggest change I've ever had is just when I start putting stuff in my calendar and saying it doesn't go on the calendar unless it's going to get done. And that means that I rely solely on my calendar to do stuff, and it means that I do not put things in there unless I have the intention of getting it done. So that way, if it goes in there, it needs to get done. So that way I'm very careful about how I assign my time. And it also means that I am able to see how much time I'm assigning to something. So that way, I can't say I'm going to spend all day on the couch, but I can say, you know what, I'm going to spend 30 minutes on the couch, then I'm going to get up, and then I'm going to do all this stuff. And by giving yourself that 30 minutes, I would never be able to validate that in my mind, but if I say it there, it's like, okay, I can do that now. And same thing with cleaning and other little tasks. Like I might say, I don't have time to clean, but if I put 15 minutes for cleaning, then I can say, okay, well, look, no matter what, it's 15 minutes and I'm going to stop. These are such trivial things, but these are the kind of things that help you be more productive. So using things like Reportive, using things like Email Game allow you to start kind of getting on top of all that stuff. Boomeranging your emails, so you can start to batch it all. Now, there's so many more tools I want to talk about, but it's just a matter of time, really. One thing I'd love to actually just quickly dive onto, if I can find the icon. There's a couple of really, really cool tools that I use, but one is called FileSeek. There we go. And FileSeek, basically, it's a tool for searching for files. But what I find, if you do any scripting or programming, this is awesome because I could search through all my scripts and I can actually type in a query. Like, let's say I'm looking for how to use the format function. I just type in, look in my whole entire script directory, and I type in like just format, and it's actually going to look through every single one of my files for anything related to that query. So hopefully something pops up here. I'm just doing a quick look, but basically what happens is it will bring up actually ODrive dev fxtet. It's like, so what I could do is I can search through a directory. It's going to bring up anything to do with that string, and it actually will bring up like a preview of that file inside the program. So I find that just to be so useful to be able to just kind of click on stuff and be able to copy out the code, for instance, or whatever I'm looking for. So I'm going to see like how I used it in context. I can copy that string. So yeah, I just find it to be like a really useful tool for that sort of thing. There's also another one called a batch rename, which I don't have here right now, but again, allows you to rename stuff intelligently in like 100,000 different ways. I'll see if I can include that stuff, but just simple tools like that. There are thousands of other ones. I don't know if this episode is going to be one that everyone is going to be able to appreciate, but for me, it's more, I just want to kind of put together some of the stuff that I find I use daily for everything that I do. Actually, here's Wunderlist. And yeah, so there's lots of different ones, and they can truly transform your day just having a lot of this stuff. And I want to kind of showcase a bit of how I work. So it's very different than anything I've ever done. And I was going to spend a day or two and make this a really, really polished episode or video, depending on what you're looking at. But I just decided to instead rough it and make this completely just me kind of going free for all. And yeah, just going to see what we get. So yeah, I'd love to hear your feedback on this stuff. And also, for me, I'd love to see what are the tools that you use, because I think this is a chance for us to kind of open communication as to like what tools you find to be really useful. If there's one that you find to be better than Evernote, or if there's like a certain service, website, whatever that you're finding that is just irreplaceable for getting your stuff done. Like, I could obviously talk about Shotgun, or, I could talk about like, going to Envato and getting Photoshop actions that you could use for design, whatever it's going to be. But it's just a matter of like resources that are so valuable to your productivity, to even just getting through your day. So I'd love to hear from you. Next episode is going to be a lot more. I've actually been working this episode for a couple of weeks now. So quite the opposite to this one, but I'm going to be putting together pretty much a complete overlook of using LinkedIn, how to be a LinkedIn ninja. So LinkedIn is such a powerful tool for getting jobs, but especially for our industry, being whether it's design, animation, 3D, or just any creative like designers, I want to put together an episode designed to how to utilize LinkedIn specifically for you. And kind of like how I talked about Reportive and how you could find email addresses, stuff like that, I want to talk about a lot of tactics to do with Facebook and LinkedIn, specifically to how you can really use it as a weapon for a lot of your productivity and how you work. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Until then, I'd love to hear your feedback about tools that you use and stuff that you find to be really productive. And again, I'd actually love to get your feedback on what you thought of this episode, because like I said, it's completely different to how I typically put together an episode. Definitely a bit more rough, but a lot more fun to do as well. So that is it for now. I'll be back next week with another episode, and then I have some really awesome interviews coming up with a few really cool people shortly that I'm sure all of you guys know. So that's it, guys. Thank you again for listening, and I'll be back next week. I'd love to hear from you.